What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness. I am back with another episode, and thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is one that is going to focus on the topic of sleep, and we are going to zone in on sleep in terms of its effect on training performance. There's some interesting research that I read lately that I thought would be beneficial to share with everybody that listens to the podcast, just because it outlines some interesting pieces of information about how training truly impacts performance. And we can look at it through a couple different lenses. One, we can look at it on a very micro scale of one night's sleep and its impact on the next day's performance. And then we can also look at it on a more macro scale and say, okay, my overall sleep trend and my sleep hygiene and my sleep habits and my sleep quality, how do those affect my training performance over an extended period of time? So we're going to dive into the answers to those questions and a lot more in this episode. So I'm excited to get into it. And again, thank you for joining me on this one. Before we dive into all the good stuff, as always, I want to remind you and encourage you to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, if this is your first time listening. I am on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All you got to do is search for the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. You'll find me there. You can subscribe, follow along. And if you get an opportunity to leave a rating and or review, that would really help me out. I'd really appreciate it a lot, because that's going to help this podcast get in front of more people. And the goal here is to spread as much free and usable information as possible as it relates to fitness and nutrition. I'm also on basically every social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Again, search for Chris Gates Fitness. You'll find me there. Full video episodes of these podcasts can be found on my Facebook and my YouTube page. And what else? I guess the last thing is that I am a coach. So I am an online fitness coach. What I do is I work with people from all over the country to accomplish whatever goals they have. Some people, it's just putting together a training program that works for them. For other people, they want to, accomplish very specific goals like losing some weight, building muscle, getting stronger. I've worked with people who train for different competitions like, half marathons and marathons, powerlifting meets, basically anything that involves fitness and nutrition, and combining them together to make a program that works for you. That's what I do, and those are the type of people I work with. So if at any point you're interested in getting a little bit of extra guidance, a little bit of help, I would love to talk to you about the type of coaching that I offer and see if it might be a good fit for us to work together. My website is chrisgatesfitness.com. I have hundreds of articles on the website alone about training, nutrition, mindset, things like today's episode about sleep performance and sleep hygiene and how they relate with training and everything like that. So tons of free information on my website, chrisgatesfitness.com. Just click on articles at the top and you'll be able to dive into a lot of good stuff. So I think that's it. With that said, let's dive into the topic of the day, which I mentioned at the beginning, is how much does sleep impact our training performance? And I think we've all been on one side or the other of this topic at some point in time, where you can probably attest to the fact that when you get a really good night's sleep, the next day you're feeling pretty energetic, you're feeling pretty motivated, and when you have that good night's sleep and you head into the gym the next day, you probably are very energized and really excited and raring to go to take on whatever the task is that day, whatever the goal is in your training program. But on the flip side, there's obviously the opposite of that, which is not getting a good night's rest, or not getting several good nights' rest, and knowing what that does to us. Oftentimes it's a mental thing where you just don't feel like going into the gym, or you go into the gym and you kind of go through the motions because you're just feeling tired and sluggish, and it's something that's really difficult to get through, both mentally and physically. And so those are the two that we have to balance, and we probably have a little bit of both over time. But let's dive into what the research says about those different scenarios, because there's some interesting information about what that one night of good sleep or that one night of bad sleep, how it actually impacts our training the next day. And also, if you string a couple good nights together or a couple bad nights together, what that means for your training performance over time. Okay, so a recent meta-analysis came out that examined the effects of sleep duration on exercise performance, and this was in competitive athletes. And the overarching conclusion that they came to was pretty clear and not necessarily that surprising. They evaluated 19 different research studies, and a meta-analysis is simply that. It is something that reviews large amounts of research on a specific topic to hopefully come to a conclusion. And so we looked at 19 different studies in this meta-analysis, and what was concluded was that longer sleep durations either had a positive effect or a neutral effect on exercise performance. So what that said was that at worst, more sleep does nothing. But at best, it provides actual performance benefits. And you saw that a lot throughout the different studies that were analyzed in this meta-analysis. And on my website, I have an article about this topic. The title is How Much Does Sleep Affect Training Performance? And there's a link to this meta-analysis if you want to go in there, click, and read more. So that's pretty straightforward though, right? You know, if you get more sleep, it's gonna improve your performance. There's performance benefits to it. More sleep equals better training. That's not, I think, all too terribly groundbreaking. But there were a few additional details that I thought were pretty interesting and worth going over to kind of put all of this into context. And beyond that, pretty darn clear evidence and pretty darn logical evidence about more sleep likely benefiting your performance, was that chronic sleep habits prove to be much more impactful than acute sleep disruptions. And what that means is, so we're talking chronic sleep habits. That means the sleep habits that you have day after day after day over a long period of time. And the acute sleep disruptions are those individual kind of micro issues with sleep, or, you know, an individual night of poor sleep amidst a longer period of good sleep. So changes in your sleep that last a week or more are likely going to be much more impactful for you than changes that occur for a day or two. And that goes in both directions, whether it's positive changes where you're getting good sleep over a week or more, or negative changes where you're getting poor sleep over a week or more. And this meta-analysis was reviewed in the Mass Research Review, and Greg Nuckols was the person that reviewed it. And I thought his quote was good in part of his review. He said, if you habitually get 8 hours of sleep and you have one night where you only get 6 hours of sleep, you'll probably be fine. So, I thought that was interesting because, you know, mentally, when we go into the gym after a poor night's sleep, it often feels like the weight is just heavier. You feel more sluggish. You feel like you don't have the energy to do the work that you need to do. But that might not necessarily be the case. And it might be your mind getting the best of you when you could be putting in pretty good effort. If you were able to get over that mental hurdle, that mental barrier of, oh man, I got poor sleep, this is just going to be a terrible workout. And that's a key detail that seems to mirror other aspects of fitness and nutrition. We talk about it here all the time, right? If you consistently eat healthy, you can afford to have a bad meal or a bad day. That happens occasionally. You know, it doesn't mean that the rest of your fitness, or the rest of your nutrition goes to crap. No, it just means you had one, cheat meal or one bad day. And if you get back on the wagon the next day, things are going to be fine. And that same goes with fitness too, right? If you miss one workout, or if you have one workout where you just really aren't putting in the level of effort that you would like to, you're not proud of it, that's, not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you're not going to reach the goal that you have. It doesn't mean that you have to go back to square one, right? It just means come back into the gym the next day and get back in the saddle and get back after it and find that level of intensity and quality training that you normally have. So this impact of sleep kind of follows along the same lines, and we probably shouldn't be surprised because we talk a lot on this podcast about how powerful habits are. And if you get into a string of positive habits with any of this stuff, fitness, nutrition, sleep, you're going to be in a pretty good spot regardless of if you have a little hiccup here or there. There's also some research evidence that suggests that total workout volume, which means all of the sets and reps and exercises and weight that you lift, that's your, when you look at it globally, that's your total training volume. That workout volume can be potentially impacted by a single night of poor sleep. So what that means is, I think practically speaking, we could look at it as that workout goes on, if you only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep the night before, you may find that the last exercise of the day or the last 2 exercises of the day, that might be where you start to feel the effects of the poor night of sleep. Not necessarily, it doesn't mean that's going to happen, but it could potentially happen. So to sum this all up, a single night of poor sleep isn't likely to have a huge effect on your training. It may potentially limit your energy levels and your ability to do quality work throughout an entire workout, but generally speaking, it's not the end of the world. Overall, you should still be able to get a training session in and do good work, but if this sleep issue continues to persist over time, then we have a different conversation to have, because that's when the issues start to become more apparent, as that one night of poor sleep turns into several nights of poor sleep. That's when you see performance decline, typically. And we've also seen research indicate that sleep loss results in drops in exercise tolerance, motivation, mood, rate of perceived exertion, which means how difficult you perceive that workout to be. And that's a lot of the mental stuff that we talked about at the beginning. So one night or several nights of poor sleep, as we string them together, can certainly affect you not only physically, but on the mental piece of it as well. And to round out all the research evidence that we're talking about, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about just the general health benefits that come with quality sleep, or the negative health effects that happen when you are sleep deficient. And, we see increases in likelihood of things like heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke. So chronically bad sleep is something that is a significant issue just on a general health perspective, let alone how it could impact you and your training and the pursuit of the goals that you have. Okay, so to sum this all up, coaching cues. This is what we do every episode. It's important to get sleep each night, and enough quality sleep each night. And adults should probably get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I know these are groundbreaking recommendations that you're not going to get anywhere else. No, I get it. Like the coaching cue here, the thing that I would recommend is to get quality sleep. And I know that's easier said than done. So my recommendations are kind of twofold. And we can start with the mental toll that sleep loss takes. That's very real and very important and potentially difficult to manage. So I mentioned at the start of this article, you may let a poor night of sleep negatively impact your training, perhaps even to the point of not training at all. Well, occasionally that's not a big deal, but if it's a recurring issue whenever you have poor sleep, it's probably something that you need to dive into in more detail. And mentally adjusting and understanding that one night of poor sleep doesn't have to derail your day, your training, your goals. That's a huge hurdle to overcome, because we can stretch it further by ensuring and working to make sure that that one night doesn't snowball into something worse. You also are able to avoid the potential mental barriers that inevitably surface with people when your sleep gets screwed up the next time you need to go to sleep. And what I mean by that is, okay, you get one bad night of sleep. You're like, whatever is one bad night of sleep. I'll sleep better tomorrow night. Then you don't sleep better tomorrow night. And then that happens again. And so then you have 3 nights of sleep that have been really bad. And you go to lay down for a 4th night of sleep. And all you're thinking about is how you didn't sleep well the previous 3 nights. And you have to get good sleep tonight, because if you don't, you're going to feel even worse tomorrow. And then that mental struggle keeps you up at night. And then it just continues to happen and happen and happen. I speak from experience. I used to have very, very serious sleep issues. And I've been through this, and I work with clients who struggle with this on a regular basis. And I understand that it's not easy, but it's something that we need to work to avoid as much as we possibly can, because that happens. And then you say, okay, I'm going to skip the gym. And then you're worrying about getting sleep the next night because you want to be able to go to the gym the next day, but you think if I don't get good sleep, I'm not going to be able to go to the gym again the next day. So then you lay in bed and you worry about falling asleep and, wash, rinse, repeat this scenario over and over again. So we don't want you getting in your own head and ruining an entire week's worth of sleep, because that is something that's common. The mental challenge is always going to be there, but hopefully some of the research evidence we went through earlier can ease your fears a bit to know that, a single instance of a poor night of sleep doesn't have to derail everything. We just need to hit the gym still, continue about your day, be in a routine. We're going to talk about a routine in a second, and then, get that quality night of sleep the next night. And on the topic of routine, okay, the second challenge is to work on your sleep every day and treat it like you would your actual training. What I mean about that is you're probably purposeful when you walk in the gym. At least hopefully you are. You're probably not walking in the gym with no idea what you're going to do that day. You probably walk into the gym and understand, hey, today is my push day. I'm going to do chest, shoulders, and triceps. Or today is a lower body day. We're going to squat. We're going to do the leg extensions. We're going to work on calves. We're going to work on glutes. Like, you probably go into the gym having some type of game plan, right? Well, you should have a game plan for your sleep as well. Sleep routines are extremely important. And with the release of the article that I mentioned at the top, reminder that the article on my website, how much does sleep affect training performance? I also released an article on my website specifically about sleep routines and what I would recommend you do to put a sleep routine into place. So if you need guidance on this, please go to the website. Please check that article out, because in that article, we dive deep into the work that's involved with establishing proper sleep habits, okay? And the positive impact that those proper habits can have over time. And it shouldn't surprise you. If you follow anything that I put out, or if you listen to the podcast or watch any of these videos, you know how much I believe in habits. And I think you should understand, with the research that we go over all the time here, that habits truly turn into positive results. Sleep is no different. So I map out in that article a routine that I highly recommend that you get into and put into place to improve your sleep over time. Sleep, and with the sleep routine and habits and everything like that, it's not something that you're going to fix overnight. It's simply not, if this is a chronic issue that you have. But again, speaking from personal experience, it is one that you can improve over time. But it takes time, and we map all that out in the article, so please check that out. I also have another resource on my website, 5 tips to improve your sleep. You can check that out. It has more information, more recommendations that might benefit you. Sleep is a topic that I consider to be just as important as training and nutrition, because you have to train hard, you have to fuel your body, and you have to recover. And sleep is the recovery piece. And if you're not sleeping well, you're going to struggle with the other 2 pieces of the puzzle when it comes to fitness and nutrition. We've talked enough in this podcast about how training and sleep interact with each other, so I don't have to go into it there. Nutritionally, it's the same deal, man. If you get poor sleep, you're more likely to reach for worse options. You're more likely to snack. And physiologically, there are certain things that happen within your body, hormones, shifts, all kinds of things that are really going to negatively impact the nutrition piece as well. So I can't recommend using these resources, reading through them enough. And you can always feel free to contact me if you need more information, or you're curious about this, or if you're curious about coaching, because sleep is a piece of the coaching puzzle that we work on too. So yeah, to sum it all up, man, routines are powerful. They go a long way. Specifically with sleep, they go a long way to help you get the most out of your sleep each night. We already know how important recovery is for training. So putting a routine in place is going to maximize all of these pieces to the puzzle and really help you get back on track. But, like we talked about at the beginning too, don't let one night of sleep derail your progress because you think it's the end of the world. Most likely, if you just make sure you get your butt in the gym the next day, you're going to feel good enough to get that training session in chances are that training session helps you sleep better at night. And then you get good sleep, and then you're able to show up and you're excited to get in the gym the next day. So I hope this podcast helped. Hope you check out the article as well. And as always, like I always say, I really appreciate you tuning in. And if this is a topic you think could help somebody that you know, please share the podcast with them or share the article. I would love to help spread, the right information to as many people as possible. And again, if coaching is something that you're interested in, if sleep and training and nutrition are things that you need help with and you would like some guidance with, that's exactly what I do, what I love to do, because I love helping people out. So check out my website, chrisgatesfitness.com. There's a coaching page on there. You can contact me. We can talk about what options might be available for you so that we can work together and really try and up level and maximize and dial in all of these different elements to get you moving in the right direction. So follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube, like the Facebook page to get these full episodes of the podcast in video form. And if you want to listen to the audio, Apple Podcasts and Spotify is where it's at. So thank you all for listening. As always, I really, really do appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk to you again in the next one. All right. See ya.